Hi everyone, we're going to continue reading the Westing Game. So we're on chapter 8 titled The Paired Heirs. During the night, Flora Baumbach's itsy-bitsy snowflakes raged into a blizzard. The tenants of Sunset Towers awoke from clue-chasing, blood-dripping dreams, bound in twisted sheets and imprisoned by 15-foot snowdrifts. No telephones, no electricity. Snowbound with a murderer. The slow procession looked like some ancient, mysterious rite as partner sought out partner on the windowless stairs, and silent pairs threaded through the corridors in the flickering light of crooked, color-striped candles, the product of Turtle's stint at summer camp. "These handmade candles are both practical and romantic," she said, peddling her wares from apartment door to frighten tenants at 7 in the morning. "Oh, it's only Turtle. And the colored stripes tell time, which is very handy if your electric clock stopped. Each stripe burns exactly 1/2 hour, more or less. 12 stripes, 6 hours. How much? Not wishing to take advantage of this emergency, I've reduced the price to only $5 each." Outrageous! Even more so when the electricity came on 2 hours after her last sale. "Sorry, no refunds," Turtle said. No matter, what was $5 to heirs of an estate worth $200 million? Clues, they had to work on those clues. Behind closed doors. Whisper, someone may be listening. Not all the heirs were huddled and plotting, puzzle-solving pairs. Jake Wexler had retreated to his office after a long and loud argument with his wife. He sure could have used half of that $10,000, but he wouldn't admit it, not to her. The forfeited money upset her more than the murder of her uncle, if he was her uncle. 5 floors above, Jake's partner stood before the restaurant's front window staring at the froth of the angry lake and beyond. No one had bothered to tell Madame Who about the Westing game. Other players were snowbound elsewhere. Denton Deer in the hospital, Sandy at home. No one gave a thought to where Otis Amber or Crow might be. But Seidel Pulaski was there, thumping her crutch against the baseboards as she limped through the carpeted halls on the arm of her pretty partner. Not one, but 7 tenants had invited her to morning coffee or afternoon tea. Murderer or not, they had to see Pulaski's copy of that will. 3 lumps, please. Angela drinks it black. Your health? Thank the Lord I'm still able to hobble about. Your job? I was private secretary to the president of Schultz Sausages. Poor Mr. Schultz, I don't know how he'll manage without me. Your shorthand notes? Thank you for the refreshments. I must hurry back for my medication. Come, Angela. One heir had not invited them in, but that didn't stop Seidel Pulaski from barging into apartment 2D. Hi, Chris. Just thought we'd pop in to see how you're doing. Don't be scared. I'm not the murderer. Angela is not the murderer. And we don't think you were the murderer. Mind if I sit down? The secretary toppled into a chair next to the invalid before he could reply. Here, I stole a macaroon for you. It's so sticky you'll be tasting it all day. I must have 6 strands of coconut between my upper molars. Chris took the cookie. Just look at that smile. It could break your heart. Angela wished her partner had not said that. It seemed so insensitive, so crude. But at least Seidel was talking to him, which was more than she was able to do. Angela, the fortunate one, standing like a dummy. I know Denton wants to work on the clues with you. He's snowbound, too. You very pretty. How did pretty come out? He meant to say nice. Chris bent his curly head over the geography book in his lap. She wasn't laughing at him. It was all right to ask her because she was going to marry his partner. What are grands? Angela did not understand. Chris fanned the pages of the book to a picture of a wheat field. Grains. Oh, grains. You want to know the names of some grains? Let's see. There's wheat, rye, corn, barley, oats. O's! Angela thought the boy was going into a fit, but he was only repeating her last words. Oats. Seidel was puffing her warm breath on the window and wiping a frosted area clean with her sleeve. There, now you'll be able to watch the birds again. Anything else we can do for you, young man? Chris nodded. Read me short news. The pretty lady and the funny lady moved quickly out of the door. One limped, but it was a pretended limp. He could tell. Not like the limper on the Westinghouse lawn. Oats. Chris closed his eyes to picture the clues. Grain equals oats equals Otis Amber. 4 plus D from shed equals Ford. But neither the delivery boy nor the judge limped, and he still hadn't figured out she or a plane. He'd have to wait for Denton Deer. Denton Deer is smart. He was a doctor. Chris raised his binoculars to the cliff. Wind-blown drifts buttressed the house, and something moved on the second floor, a hand holding back the edge of a drape. Slowly the heavy drape fell back against the window. The Westinghouse was snowbound too, and somebody was snowbound in it. Only one of the players thought the clues told how the $10,000 check was to be spent. Take stock in America, the will said. Go for broke, the will said. In the stock market, Turtle said, and whoever makes the most money wins it all. The whole $200 million. Their clues, C, Mountain, AM, O, stood for symbols of 3 corporations listed on the stock exchange. SEA, MT, the abbreviation for Mountain, AMO. But AM and O are separate clues, Flora Baumbach said, to confuse us. But what about the murderer? I thought we were supposed to find the name of the murderer, to put us off the track. If the police suspected murder, she'd be in jail by now. Her fingerprints were over everything in the Westinghouse, including the corpse. You don't really think one of us could have killed a living, breathing human being in cold blood, do you, Mrs. Baumbach? Do you? Turtle did, but the dressmaker was a cream puff. Don't you look at me like that, Turtle Wexler. You know very well I could never think such a thing. I must have misunderstood. Oh my, I just wish Miss Pulaski had shown us her copy of the will. Turtle returned to her calculations, multiplying numbers of shares times... Turtle returned to her calculations, multiplying numbers of shares times price, adding a broker's commission, trying to total the sums to the $10,000 they had to spend. Flora Baumbach may have been wrong about the murder, but she was not convinced of Turtle's plan. What about buy Westing paper products? I'm sure that was in the will. Great, Turtle exclaimed. We'll do just that. We'll add WPP to the list of stocks we're going to buy. Flora Baumbach had watched enough television commercials to know that buy Westing paper products meant that as soon as she could get to market, she'd buy all the Westing products on the shelf. Still, it felt good having a child around again. She'd play along gladly. You know, Turtle, you might be right about putting our money in the stock market. I remember the will said, "May God thy gold refine." That must be from the Bible. Shakespeare, Turtle replied. All quotations were either from the Bible or Shakespeare. Mr. Who moved aside a full ashtray with a show of distaste and rearranged the clues. Purple fruited makes more sense. Grace Wexler looked across the restaurant to the lone figure at the window. Are you sure your wife doesn't understand English? I mean, after living here so long? That's my second wife. She came over from Hong Kong 2 years ago. She does look young, but it's so hard to tell ages of people of the Oriental persuasion, Grace said. Why was he glaring at her like that? Your wife is quite lovely, you know, so doll-like and inscrutable. Who bit off a half a chocolate bar? He had enough problems with the empty restaurant. A lazy son and his nagging ulcer, now he had to put up with this bigot. Grace lit another cigarette and rearranged the clues to read, Purple Waves. You heard that doorman say, Purple Waves. It must mean something. And that ghastly secretary was wearing a dress with purple waves last night, not to mention her crutch. You should not speak unkindly of those less fortunate than you, Who said. You're quite right, Grace replied. I thought the poor thing handled her infirmity with great courage. Traveling mimosa, my future son-in-law says. He's a doctor, you know. Anyhow, Pulaski couldn't possibly be the murderer, not the way she gimps around. Besides, how could my Uncle Sam know she'd wear purple waves to his funeral? Who waved the cigarette smoke from his face? The murderer had to have a motive. How about this? A niece murders her rich uncle to inherit his money. Good sport that she was, Grace tossed back her head and uttered an amused, Ha ha ha! Not that I care, Who said. That cheating moneybag's got what he deserved. What's the matter? Look! Grace pointed to the clues. Fruited, purple, waves, 4C. For C. The murderer lives in apartment 4C. I live in 4C, Who barked. If Sam Westing wanted to say 4C, he would have written number 4, letter C. SEA means sea, like what a turtle swims in. Come now, Mr. Who. We are both being silly. Have you spoken to your son about his clues? Some son. If you can catch him, you can ask him. Who stuffed the rest of the candy bar in his mouth? And some business I've got here. Everybody orders up. Nobody orders down. That coffee shop is sending me to the poorhouse. And you're Angela and that Pulaski woman. They didn't show us the will. They didn't give us their clues. They didn't pay for 3 cups of jasmine tea and 6 almond cookies, and you smoke too much. And you eat too much. Grace threw her coin purse on the table and stormed out of the restaurant. Change, that's all he'll get from her. He'll have to beg on his knees before she'd sign Grace Winslow Wexler on the $10,000 check. That madman. Some pair they made. Attila the Hun and Gracie the Useless. Gracie Winclopple Wexler, heir pretender, pretentious heir. First, the money. They signed their names to the check. Half would go into Doug Who's savings account. Half would go to Theo's parents. Next, the clues. His, N, on, to, the, for. Maybe there's numbers. Maybe they're numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, Theo guessed. I still say on is no, the bored track star said. He clasped his hands behind his head, leaned back in the coffee shop booth, and stretched his long legs under the opposite bench. And no is what we got. No real clues. No leads. No will. After 3 cups of coffee, 2 pastries, and a bowl of rice pudding with cream, Seidel Pulaski had offered nothing in return. Theo refused to give up. Are you sure you didn't see anything unusual at the Westing house that night? I didn't kill Westing, if that's what you mean. And the only unusual thing I saw was Turtle Wexler. I think the pest is madly in love with me. How's that for luck? Get serious, Doug. One of the heirs is a murderer. We could all get killed. Just because somebody zapped the old man doesn't mean he's going to kill again, Dad says. Doug paused. His father's comment about awarding a medal to the murderer might be incriminating. Theo tried another tack. I was playing chess with somebody in the game room last night. Who? That's what's strange. I don't know who. We'll have to find out which one of the heirs plays chess. Since when is chess playing evidence for murder? Well, it's something to go on, Theo replied. And another thing. The will said no 2 sets of clues are alike. Maybe all the clues put together make one message. A message that points to the murderer. Somehow or other, we'll have to get the heirs to pull the clues. Oh, sure. The killer can't wait to hand over the clues that will hang him. Doug rose. Snowbound or not, he had to stay in shape for the track meet. For the rest of the day, he jogged through the hallways up and down stairs, scaring the nervous tenants half out of their wits. We're going to pause right there. We'll continue reading Chapter 8 next time.